Okay, let's get started. We are looking at digital content creation today. There's, as you can see, two other modules that we already started with, not including the introduction, which was the first one that we had a look at. So today we're looking at digital content creation, and I've chosen a few as examples. Obviously, there's a lot more. There's other types of content, digital content that you can have a look at and go educate yourself even more. But the big one here, I think, once it starts to look familiar, if you've seen the other ones, it's a good thing because that's the plan. It's supposed to always to start feeling familiar and sounding familiar because you've kind of gone through some of the basics and now you're looking at this. So how I want to get started is I actually want to just get started in terms of what it is, right? Understanding exactly what it is and what its purpose is, so that as we go, it also just gives you context of what we'd be looking at today. So it is, in essence, any content or any media that you create, whether it will be shared or it will be consumed in a digital format, primarily through electronic devices. So like your computer, your smartphone, your tablet, now connected TV as well. These are all the platforms that you can have a look at. In context of digital marketing, it is really key to driving engagement, brand awareness, and conversions. And that's why you'll see as we go into the different types, I also speak to what are your objectives for this specific platform? What is the objective of that content? Because then it will give you an idea of what type of digital content you should actually be looking at. It is crafted to resonate with specific target audiences, so you should always have your target audience in mind, and also understanding your target audience in relation to what kind of objective you're trying to get from what you're creating. And I'm not just talking about brands, I'm talking about even your own personal brand or your own social media platforms. Then I want to look at how difficult is it, what kind of skills do you need, and how do you get started, right? It's easy to moderate. It also depends again on what type of content you're creating. You'll see there's some where there's a lot more involvement. There's others where it's really easy to get started. You either just write copy or you pick up your phone and you create. But it's easy to moderate, and I'm saying moderate because then it starts to be a little more intricate. You have to be good at writing and communication, because in essence, that's why on the title slide we said, the art of storytelling. You are telling your story. You need to be able to write and communicate. You need to understand the basics of visual design as well, because there's an element of this of creating digital content where you need to bring it to life. SEO. SEO always sounds technical, but it's not as technical as you think. But you need to understand, if you're creating content, you need to know how you get people to it. You can just create content for the sake of creating. How do you get people to actually find your content on the different platforms? And it works differently based on which platform you're on. And then you need to have a content strategy. The one thing that always kills a lot of personal brands or even big brands is that there's no consistency in how they're creating the content. They don't understand what the plan is for each of the platforms. And that's why content strategy is key. Digital media savviness. So you need to know what the new innovation is within the different platforms so that you can actually use them. And I'm saying this because the key thing is that on all these platforms, when they introduce new features, they always push content that's used in the new features because they're trying to get more people to use it. So adopting new features in the platform is perfect for your growth as well. You can start a blog to get started, or you can start a YouTube channel. And I understand it's always difficult, but it's one of those skills where once you get started and create, and the more you create, the better you get at it. And that's key. You need to learn basic SEO, as I've already mentioned. You need to engage with content online. It's key for you to understand within your niche or within your brand target audience or the type of content they want to do. How are other brands behaving? How are other people behaving if it's your personal profile? Engage with that so you understand exactly how it works. It gives you better context than just creating. I truly and honestly believe in creative input is just as important as creative output. If you are consuming garbage content, you're going to create garbage content. That's what it always is. Observing successful content creators, that also speaks to what I just spoke about. How are they doing it? What did they do? What did they learn? If you go through their entire timeline and you look at their journey, you will see where they've changed and how they've elevated. And then looking at essence, what are then, what do you need to understand, and also in what context? So who needs to really learn and understand digital content creation, and who needs to be good at it, right? So let's have a look at that. Then brands. as always, brands will be a key one, and you need to understand in the context of creating for brands and how that works for them and how you need to adapt. And what's key here is that it's not about you as a person working on the brand, it's the brand and the audience. So you need to be very clear on that. Then it's important for influencers. That one goes without saying. Their entire creator economy is built on being able to understand and create digital content. And then you also, as a freelancer, you'll be working for different brands, for different people, for different personalities. You need to understand how that fits into what services you're offering, as well as professionals. So some of us will then work on different brands. This is why it's key and it's important. And it doesn't matter where you're working, whether you're within a creative agency, a digital agency, or a media agency. You need to understand the essence of digital content creation so that you're able to input into the plans you're working on and structure your strategy for media and have the key pillars of digital content creation in mind as you do that. Then you also it really is for anyone who's engaged online who needs to understand it, because it's also very important that you know how these platforms work and you understand how you are setting yourself up for a very good experience online. If you are paying a lot of attention and commenting on a lot of depressing content because you're in that space, you'll start to see these platforms serve you more of that content. So they don't help you get out of it. They just feed you more of the content you're creating and keeps you in that. So if you're good at really watching what kind of content you're engaging with and commenting on, you will have a very good and much more pleasant experience online. And then let's have a look at what your objectives could potentially be. Like I said, objectives are important. And it's, again, not a fancy term, but all it needs to be is, why are you creating the content that you're creating? So you can do it to either build awareness for yourself or for the brands you work on. You could build it purely because you want to drive engagements, and engagement is different. Do you want people to save your content? Do you want them to share it? Do you want them to comment? Do you want them to like? Be clear on what that engagement is and create with that in mind. That could change what your copy says. That could change the structure of your video in very different ways. So you need to understand that. Sometimes it's to increase consideration. If you're trying to sell, service, a product, it's driven so people can think of your brand more often than others. And sometimes it's to drive conversion, where you actually need to get them to take an action. Believe it or not, people still need to be told what action to take, and you need to be explicit about that. So that's why it's key to also know exactly what objective you're creating for. And then let's have a look at what types of digital content exist in digital marketing. And these are the ones that I'm going to be touching on the presentation. But like I said, there's many more that you can have a look at and read up for yourself. There's blogs and articles. That's probably one of the biggest ones and the oldest ones. Blogs have been around. Articles have been around for the longest time. If you go into any big website, whether it's news, it's entertainment, or lifestyle, they will have a blog and article section. And that's because that's how you get people to your website, but providing value to your audience, and they come and then they stay for more or of the content that's on your website. But yeah, that's a big one. While we're on it, value is a key one. You need to add value to your audience, otherwise they're not going to come back and they're not going to stay. Social media posts, I think everyone is fairly clear on this, but it's not just about updating your status, as we used to say back in the day. It's really about crafting content with a specific objective in mind and with knowing exactly what you're trying to do. Video content, we've seen the growth of video content. We've seen the growth of short form video content, and that exists in so many different platforms. But because those platforms work in different ways, there's a different purpose for each of those types. So stories and reels are different to YouTube Shorts. Yes, it's 9:16, but the objectives are slightly different. TikTok is different to an Instagram or a Facebook reel or story. Understand what platform you're creating for, what audiences use for that platform for, what placement they do specific things on, so you know what you're creating for. Podcasts, long form content, they've made it shorter in some channels, and that also works. But this is another one where it's growing rapidly, and there's a lot of room for brands as well as personal brands specifically, where you can build an audience and you can actually start to build a community around your brand, around your service, and around just who you are. And then user-generated content, a lot of brands don't look at this as a part of their digital content, and it really is, and it needs to be part of it. it's a lot more engaging to have people talk about your brand than listen to you talk about your brand. And often you don't know what people want to hear from you unless you actually look at the UGC and you see what people are already saying about you. Now, this could be stuff that you've asked for or stuff that people are just sharing voluntarily. It holds the same values, just as important. Okay, so we'll go into the first one, right? We look at blogs and articles. I've already kind of spoken to what it is. It's longer, written pieces. They provide information, they provide solutions, they entertain to specific audiences, and that's why each website will have a specific blog section. If it's a fashion, it will focus on fashion. If it's sport, it will focus on sport. But it's in essence, it is rooted in who the audience is that's coming to your website. Objectives: you can drive awareness with this, you can drive engagement, and you can also traffic to your website. This is what the SEO I was talking about is key. If you're using the right keywords, if you understand your SEO, you can drive people to your website, because when you search on Google, it will pick up on your article that, oh, this article features what you're looking for, and it will take them there. It's key then that your keywords actually relate to what you're writing, because what Google does is, if you're sending people to your website but you're using the wrong keywords, when they get there, they don't find what they're looking for and they leave quickly. Google will take that as an indication that people, one, are not finding your content engaging enough or useful enough, and two, you are using, keywords in the wrong way, where you're trying to manipulate people to go to your site. And what happens is you get penalized, and your content in your website is not going to get served to people anymore. So a perfect example of this would be like a traveling agency where they publish a blog about the best places to vacate in 2024. And that isn't necessarily getting you to book with them. It's just to add value to your life. If you're already searching for travel and you're looking for ideas, they're giving you those ideas. But because they're adding value, you start to trust them more. And they're like, these people know what they're talking about. They know the places to go. Maybe if I just give them a money and I say, please plan my trip for me, they'll give me the best experience. Again, it's just about building that trust and building, that brand for you, and that relationship between your brand, yourself, and your audience. And again, you can use social media to reach more people, but small pieces of your content, quotes from it, and you link to your website. So you need to also have that strategy in mind, where you're like, it will live on my website. I'll create a few video pieces from it. I'll share it on TikTok and on Instagram or wherever, and I will answer people on X when they're asking about where can I go for vacations. All of that is part of driving traffic to your website. But you can't just drive them to an empty site. You need to drive them to a specific article that helps add value to what they're trying to find. What you need to consider, I've kind of spoken to some of these things. You need to consider who the target audience is. You need to understand what kind of question or problem they have and that you'll be solving for. Where and how are they looking for it? Is it on Google? Is it on social media? Understand that, because then you can find ways to bring them to your website. And how do you get them to stay, right? Or how do you get them to come back? And that's what I was saying. You get them to come using these content pieces, but they'll then stay for everything else that's on your website. So it's critically important that you have other content that also adds value. You'll see there's websites where once you go and you enjoy the first content piece, when they recommend another one, you go in because you trust that they write good content, and then you stay, right? So that's what's key. How do you get them to stay? How do you get them to come back? And how much more content can you create for your audience outside of this one content piece that you have? And that's the additional stuff that they're staying on your website for. Then let's go to social media posts. I think this one we're all kind of familiar with it, but I wanted to touch on it because there's some other nuances that most people tend to miss that are equally as important. So this is all your content that goes to your social platforms, and these are platforms that are built to thrive on bite-sized, easy to consume, short form content. Yes, you can drive awareness, you can drive engagement, you can drive traffic and conversions. You just need to know exactly which one you're trying to do. So a content example for this one, for instance, a clothing brand, let's say they have a website already, they have an online store, but they now need to find a way to drive people there. They need to find a way to entice people and to show people what they sell and what kind of fashion items they have, right? So they'll have like an Instagram story where it features all the new arrivals, telling them what the price is, and engaging them with interactive features like polls or quizzes, asking them, would you wear this? Where would you wear this? Which do you think is the right pair for these pants? And people can give the answers, and then you've got an alternative to say, well, actually, we recommend you wear these pants with these shoes, kind of vibe. That's engagement content, but that's social media content still. But that's also your traffic, your SEO, driving people to your website from social media. So you can see already the connection between your social, your blog, your website as well. Then what is it? I want to talk to what it is and what it isn't, because I think a lot of people kind of overcomplicate and over engineer what it is. So like timeline posts, yes, we know this. You go through your Facebook, you go through your TikTok, your X, that those are the posts you see on the timeline. That's what that is. Stories and reels, we also know what this is, but that's short form video content. And that's the content where it's just small, bite-sized, straight to the point, engaging content. You've got polls where you can ask questions, you can get people to vote and stuff. People love that stuff because they also want to see, do people agree with my opinion, or do they have a different view? Then you've got memes and emojis, and these are powerful, but brands often look away from these. And this is something I want to drive home today, is that this is how people talk and communicate already online. You need to fit within that. Don't try and create a different behavior when there's an existing behavior that you can tap into, and it can actually elevate your brand even more and your engagement even more. Then looking at video content or short form video content, this one again ranges from a YouTube tutorial to a TikTok short video, and it's increasingly popular, especially since like the COVID days. It's getting even more, and it's also popular because it's engaging, right? It's immersive. It's like a quick 15 seconds, 30 seconds. You've had your laugh, you've been educated, you've been amazed, and you move on. And it doesn't take up too much of your time, but it actually communicates what it needs to do. It can drive awareness as well. It can drive engagement, and it can take people to your website if they want to see more, and they're like, I actually like this, I need to see more, I need to see what they're talking about. That's where it comes in. Then there are some companies who are really good at doing this, and GoPro is one of them. But the other one I want to bring your attention to is Red Bull. If you go to Red Bull's Instagram page as an example, they don't really ever talk about their products. They just show what it enables people to do, what the experience that their brand enables people to actually enjoy, right? And that's a big one. So like a company for GoPro, for instance, will create an action-packed video where it shows people using their cameras in real life, but not necessarily saying, oh, here's our product. Yes, you'd have product videos, and most likely they will be on their YouTube channel as well as on their website. But the ones where they create the short size, the easily to consume videos, they'll look at the experience that their product actually brings to your life. What you need to consider is, again, where is your target audience, and which video platforms are they watching on, and on which day? And this, you can get as granular as possible. On Friday, are they on TikTok? On Sunday, are they on YouTube? On Monday, are they on LinkedIn or whatever? You need to understand that. What is the purpose of their consumption? Are they watching these videos to be entertained, or are they watching them because they're looking for information, they want to be educated, or are they looking for ideas? Do they need to come back to your content to reference it, or is it just like a once off and they're gone? If you feel like they need to come back at some point, add a call to action, ask them to save it because they might need it later. You need to be proactive. Like I said, you need to tell people what to do, what action to take, otherwise they won't. And then where do they watch long videos and where do they watch short form videos? Understand that distinction. Some people will still watch long form content on social media. Others will watch short on YouTube. You just need to understand where your audience is. Look at your analytics, look at your numbers, what your numbers are telling you. As a strategist, one thing I've learned over the years, and I've had to really get good at, is it's not about what I think, it's about what the data is telling me, and I need to follow what that data says. And then let's have a look at podcasts. Now, again, this is audio content, but now it's also become video. There's a lot of video podcasts that are quite big on YouTube, and they're popular. And it allows companies and some individuals to discuss, specific topics in depth. And it can be educational, it can be entertainment, it can be demonstrations. It's really just about what format is your podcast, and you can then take it from there. Also, you can drive awareness with this, you can drive engagement, and sometimes even conversion. If you demonstrating a product and how useful it is and how helpful it is, you can then drive conversions from there. This is why it's for a lot of tech YouTubers and reviewers, you'll get a lot of products sponsoring, like a case or a charger brand, a phone charger brand will sponsor, because that creator will speak to how useful that product is and how they use it on a day-to-day basis and how it's helped them. And that can actually drive people to then go buy that product for themselves, because they now have a first-hand recommendation from someone they love and trust. So I'm going to go with a difficult example because I don't want to go just with the fun ones. So like a financial advisory company, for instance, would produce like a podcast or on smart investing strategies, reaching users who are looking for expert advice while, they are multitasking. So while you're doing other stuff, you can just have the podcast kind of playing in the background, and you can then listen and get advice that you really need and can use to help you out with your financial planning. And this can then convert by providing a website or a link to ask for a free quote or a consultation with that company or even a different one. So when you need to consider, because it's a more involved kind of digital content, you need to have a plan, a longer term plan. You need to understand what your theme is, and you also need to do a longevity test. So try to come up with at least 10, podcast episode ideas. If they don't come easily, kind of reevaluate if your approach is the right one, even if you're choosing the right niche. Generally, if you're doing a podcast, it needs to be something that you either really well versed in, you understand, or you're passionate about, because then it's easier to come up with things to talk about. If you're force fitting because there's a niche that works really well, you will have to do your research. That's where then the journalism side of it comes in. You'll need to do your research. You need to formulate your ideas and understand you have enough information to actually be able to deliver 10 plus episodes. Why are you starting a podcast? Ask yourself that question. Do you want to generate leads for your business? Do you want to be recognized as an industry leader? Or do you just want to share an important message? Or do you just want to entertain? That it can do all of those things for you. And if you're clear about what it is that you wanted to do for you beforehand, it makes it easier to then structure and format your podcast. Then going into user-generated content, now UGC is it's one that's created by customers or fans. They share it on social media. It can be content that they've shared organically without being asked to, or it could be ones where you ask them to share and they respond back. It drives awareness. It even better because it's from it's there's a value and there's something massive in seeing someone who looks like you sharing a recommendation of a product that you also use or you want to use, better than if a brand is telling you the product is superior. It drives engagement. It's easier to engage with people and people who feel like you, people who are your peers, than it is to engage with the brand, because often we don't feel like there's a human behind brand because it's so rigid and so formulated and so over-engineered. But with UGC, it's like I said, it's everyday people, and that's why it has that power. And the same same point as well is that it can drive conversion, because you've been looking for a review, you've been looking for someone to show you what this thing looks like if they're wearing it or if they're using it in real life, and you're getting that from UGC, and that means you're more likely then to make your decision of whether or not you should buy it or not. So, for instance, beauty brands are really good at this, right? They encourage their customers to post selfies where they're using their product, and they use this as part of their word of mouth. And some of them use this to add as part of their own marketing, and they actually incentivize people to share, where they give away prizes, coupons, and that kind of stuff. And that's all really part of the game. But what the big thing about this is that people will still share organically even without being incentivized. And for me, those ones really hold a lot of power. You then have a couple of things you need to consider, and that is, do you want to know what people think about your brand? Ask yourself that, right? If you do, then you can only hear it from them. Do you want them to help you amplify a specific brand message for a campaign? Figure out a way how to do that. And do you want to drive your superior customer service? That means you then find reviews, you find people talking about your brand, whether they're giving you props or complaining. They're just as equally important. I know brands who look at negative comments and they hide them or they ignore them, but for me, that does more harm than good. Yes, there will be people who are just angry for whatever reason and who just mean for no reason, and understand that. But there's people who genuinely have concerns or had problems with your products or your service, and it's very key for you to have a look at it and then make sure you're responding to them and you're solving that problem for them, because that actually shows that you care about them and that you give perfect customer service. I'm more comfortable buying from a brand where I know if I have a problem, it will be attended to and fixed, versus if I can see a brand just kind of mises people who are complaining. Are you purely driving organic engagement online? If you are, then UGC could be a really powerful way of doing that without you spending money on creating your own content from scratch. right? So those are the few that I've kind of touched on. Like I said, there's a lot of them online that you can have a look at, and you can also just create for your own brands or your own clients, or for yourself as a personal brand or freelancer. It really just depends on what works for you. And a perfect example of this is what I'm doing now with LinkedIn, and how I'm using LinkedIn for myself, including how it eventually ended up in these webinar sessions. So it's really understanding what you're using each platform for. And then we're talking about some of the key components of digital creation, right? So these are the essential elements to make sure that your content is engaging, it's effective, and it also answers your marketing goals. Now, each one, from whether it's a blog all the way to UGC, it needs to have a, these foundation components. It needs to hit and tick all the boxes for it to succeed, right? The big one, and it applies across all the ones that I'll share, you need to be consistent. It doesn't matter which type of content, digital content you're creating, you need to be consistent. These platforms look at your consistency mainly because if I know you're going to create a content piece today and you're going to come back 6 months later, I'm not going to send people to your page or your platform to subscribe because you're going to disappear for 5 months. But if I know you're creating consistently, that means for me, if people love your content, they'll come back every month. And that's what I need. I need the monthly active users as a platform, right? So consistency is really important. And the other one is target audience. You need to understand who your target is, and you need to understand what your audience is, their motivation is, what they're looking for, and how you can serve and add value. You need to have the strategy, as I spoke to earlier. What is your strategy? What is your plan? How are you going to approach it? How are you going to scale your content? If you can't do 1 million pieces per week, how do you turn one into 10? And that can actually help you. Then creative elements, understand what you need to bring your story to life. It's not just about copy and speaking and all of that. You need to know how to bring it to life. Is it more of a storytelling aspect of it, or is it more of a design with some copy? Understand that and understand basics. The platforms like Canva, platforms that will actually give you templates you can use and just replace the content. I'll share some of them in the deck as well, and you can have a look when I share the full presentation. SEO optimization, it is the basic understanding of it. Again, it's simply to answer the question, how do I get people to find the content that I've created? Then value and relevance. Make sure your content adds value. That's all I'll say about that. Make sure your content adds value. If you understand your audience and you understand what they're looking for, what problems they have, and what you're solving, you are adding value, and that's what you need to get. How do you add value? And then engagement, feedback, and analytics is a key one. Like I said, whether you have 2 people, 3 people following you, your page, your brand, you need to understand what your analytics are telling you, what engagement is telling you. Is it good? Is it bad engagement? Is it neutral? How do you skew it one way? Understand that and know exactly what the so what answer to that is. Yes, look at the data and be like, okay, cool, I know this, but so what? What does it mean for me? What does it mean to the content I'm creating? How can it help me structure and formulate my content? And that's really important. And then moving into what the digital content creation resources are, like I said, how do you get yourself started? And these are some of the platforms that I've used that really work well, and professionals in the industry use on a day-to-day. Brands pay a lot of money to be on these platforms, and that's because they add a lot of value. Like I mentioned, I already spoke about Canva, and that's a visual side helping you, understand what kind of content goes where, and being able to create templates for yourself that you can use and make that content creation process easier. Then there's Grammarly, that also speaks to writing and just improving your writing skills, your storytelling, and being able to sense check your content. HubSpot, it is a gold mine of tools, with blog posts, with advice, with templates, with everything you can look for when you're creating digital content or building brands. Hootsuite is more of a management platform, but again, how do you get people to come back? They needed to figure that out, and that's why they also have an article section where they bring back professionals to teach them on how to use the platform, how to leverage it, and how to be better brands online. Then you've got Meta. It is focused on Meta platform specifically, but that's a gold mine. Engage with that stuff, have a look at what other people are doing, have a look at what the people from Meta thinks Facebook should be used for, what Instagram needs to be used for. You'd be mind blown, but how different it is to how people use it, and that can actually help you stand out. YouTube, I always say this, my favorite thing in the world is YouTube. You ask me if I can do something, I will tell you not yet. The first place I'm going to go is YouTube, and I will find something. And that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what you're looking for. there will always be an audience for a specific niche or subject matter, and that's why there's an audience. There is actually a depository of content for you, regardless of what you're looking for. And then the blogs and websites, these are my tried and trusted and go-to. They will help you with your SEO. They will help you with the social media planning. They will help you with your advertising and setting up campaigns. They will help you to focus on specific strategies and the best practices for platforms. And they're absolutely all gold mines. You'll find the one that works for you across the board, or you will kind of alternate between these. But trust these do really well. And then podcasts, some of these have longer forms, some have shorter forms. They'll have different type of content. I mean, one focuses on digital marketing, the other focuses on social media, the other one focuses on copywriting. It's really about finding where you want to be. But I would implore you to really look at all of them, because then it makes you well-rounded. It gives you a better context of everything that happens within the industry, and that can help improve the quality of the content you're creating. Cool. And then I'll touch on this because we've touched on it in the previous ones. How do you grow in this industry? How do you grow within digital marketing or just marketing as a whole? It's really, for me, that have worked well, and I've seen it with other people as well. There's 6 things, right? You need to advance your skills and refine it and improve it all the time. Doesn't matter if you have the job already. Doesn't matter if your brand is already successful or you're successful as a personal brand. Always refine and advance your skill. Be aware of the latest trends, like I spoke to earlier. Be aware of the trends. When they blow up, be there. But understand what your brand is. Don't let them change who your brand is just because it's a trend. Only adapt the ones that speak to your brand, that you can use to leverage and build your brand as opposed to hurting it. You have to have a strong digital presence. Whether you work for a brand or not, it always blows my mind that people work on specific brands to actually market them online, but they're not even active online. How do you use a platform you're not familiar with is what I always ask. So that's important. Understand data, analytics, what your platforms are telling you based on your audiences. That's also key. And don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to try new things and different things, and use the same platforms but use them differently. That's how you stand out. And then always ask for feedback. Always look at your feedback, because that is where you will find room to grow. And then I will share this deck, but I will include the other classes that are upcoming. I'm still finalizing the dates because it's stretch season, so it's kind of quite busy. So I just need to figure out what works for me. I'm also still trying to find additional speakers. I have a few lined up who will join us in these sessions. So once I've locked those down and I actually have people who are now available and will be able to join us in these sessions, that will also be part of when I share this deck with you. I'll also include links to the previous ones so that you also have access to that. I'm going to upload the recording to the YouTube channel I created for this specifically. You're more than welcome to go there. You can download it for offline, or you can just watch on the platform as well. And yeah, if you find value in it, just make sure you are sharing as widely as you can, because there are some people who've missed this just based on what time it was being done, and they might have missed the invite or my post saying it's happening. So please share widely. And yeah, that's basically it for the digital content creation webinar. Again, I will stay for a bit longer and I will take your questions and I'll look at the chat and see what people were saying. But I appreciate you joining. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the next one.